Okay, it's been a while since I have sat down and talked to my phone about cancer. So here I am, feeling very awkward, but have a lot to share. The last time I made a video about a cancer update, I was still doing the ABVD, and I was talking about my struggle between cycle 10, 11, and 12, and I ended up being able to complete that. At the end of that, I had a PET scan. That PET scan showed all of the cancer gone except for in one spot in my thymus, and it was showing a Duvel score of 3. Now, for a lot of people, they don't know what that means. So the scale goes from 0 to, I think, like 14, maybe even higher. And 0 is no uptake, potentially no cancer. 1 is still not anything to be worried about. 2 is not anything to be worried about. 3 and above is when it starts to become a potential cancer issue. So I was at a 3. My oncologist and I talked about doing radiation or waiting 3 months to see kind of what that area will do, because he thought it was scar tissue in my thymus from having cancer anyway. So we decided against the radiation because of where the thymus is in the body. The thymus sits right on top of your heart, and it's also by a lot of breast tissue. And as a young woman, I was worried about giving myself secondary cancers like breast cancer, or giving myself a secondary diseases like heart disease, having bowel issues, needing a heart transplant. All of those things could potentially happen if we were to radiate it in the thymus area later in life. So I opted out, and we waited 3 months, and this was in June, the end of May, and we had the conversation in June. I ended up having a PET scan in August to touch up and see if the cancer has come back at all, or if that area has gotten large or anything like that, and it did. It was now showing a brightness score, or a Duvel score, of 11, and I was very sad and devastated, but I kind of knew in my heart that it wasn't done, that I wasn't done with treatment, because I didn't want to tell myself that I was done and then not be done and be even more sad. So I just let myself believe that I was on a little vacation during the summer, and that I resume in winter or in the fall to do more treatment, and that's kind of how it played out anyway. So the new PET showed my thymus was lit up like a sun, and I also had 2 new spots in my neck. So my oncologist wanted to get a proper biopsy and to make sure that the tissue was still cancer before having me do any more treatment. So we did a needle biopsy, and it came back negative. So I had this weird little small glimpse of hope, like maybe this isn't cancer, maybe we're dealing with some kind of inflammation issue, something else, maybe I'm sick, whatever. But my oncologist still needed to get verified tissue, so we ended up getting a surgery done on my thymus to take a good chunk of it and test it to see if it was still Hodgkin's, and it was. And that surgery was brutal. I've had a couple of surgeries for biopsies or my port placement and stuff like that, but this one they had to go in through my ribs, and I have a couple of spots through my ribs, and they had to like collapse my lung and all that stuff. I could explain it in more detail and show pictures, but the biopsy came back as cancer, so we started talking about a new treatment. And the original treatment that I was going to do was called ICE. ICE, and there's 3 different chemos that go into that group, and I would have done that. But between my biopsy coming back cancer and my doctor's appointment to meet with my oncologist to talk about the steps moving forward, a treatment came out called BVV, which is 2 different chemos, and they one is a targeted chemo that is fairly new, and then the other is a traditional chemo that affects all rapid dividing cells. And I would do that every 21 days. So I started that. The first one went very, very well. I was feeling very optimistic. The treatment was shorter than the ABVD. I didn't feel as bad. I had no fatigue. I wasn't nauseous at all. I was feeling very good. I was continuously working through that treatment. I felt like, I felt strong in comparison to the ABVD. And then I had the treatment number 2, and it was very different. Number 2, I developed allergic reaction, and I had swelling throughout the bottom half of my body, so my hips, my knees, my ankles. I had allergic reaction in my muscles, and I was throwing up for like 5 days. I lost a bunch of weight. I was feeling really bad. I go in for my second day of round 2. So I go in 2 days in a row every 21 days. And the second day of round 2, I met with my oncologist due to my reaction, and he talked to me about it. He said, well, I think it's allergic reaction. And I was like, okay, so what should we do? He put me on Zyrtec, and I would take Zyrtec before the treatment. After that treatment, my oncologist also ordered a PET scan, and I lied, a CT scan. And in the CT scan, it showed like a big reduction, like no cancer left in the neck, and my thymus wasn't showing up as bright, or as much. And so this was showing that I was having progress, which was amazing. At this point, all they really needed to prove is that I'm still reacting to chemo. I met with my oncologist, and he talked about my scan and what this meant, and he said that the plan is for me to do a stem cell transplant. And once I have a complete metabolic response with the chemo that I'm on currently, we will do the stem cell transplant at a different hospital, a hospital that is has all of the equipment and the staff to do that. I was excited, and I am still very excited to do that. I have not done the stem cell transplant yet. So I went in for my chemo number 3. I also started meeting with the doctors at this separate hospital to talk about the stem cell transplant and start prepping for what that would look like. Because I was showing such a good response to this chemo, they assumed that I will be getting the transplant soon. The separate doctor at the different hospital, he looked at my CT scan. He said, this is a very good response in comparison. I want an order a PET scan so we can just get a really good, clear view of what's going on. And I was like, okay, sounds good. So I got the PET scan, and the PET scan showed a complete metabolic response after 3 treatments. So now I'm on to the stem cell transplant process. I am wrapping my head around that. I am sitting here today feeling like I am completely cancer-free in my body, and it has been almost 2 years of not knowing what's going on and not knowing if I will ever hear those words. And I know that my journey isn't over, but I also know that this is the closest to normal I've been since diagnosed. And I feel really good about that. I am scared for the transplant, but I'm very excited. I could feel really terrible through it. I could talk all about what the transplant looks like and that process if anybody wants to know. I kind of feel like I'm gonna film little snippets of it or talk to the camera a couple of times while I'm in the hospital at least, just to keep myself sane, because I have to be alone for a couple of weeks because my immune system will be so low. So if anybody's interested to see me probably my weakest moments, let me know. But yeah, I just figured I'd update everyone. I did go under a rock and hid from the world for the past couple of months because a lot has been going on and I needed to feel normal, and part of feeling normal was not talking about cancer. So now here I am, back on here. Thanks. Bye.